I'm just in a different room on a very comfortable podcasting couch.
Oh, that's what I need. That's the thing that you lose when you go to a stand-up desk is the comfortable podcasting couch.
I spent a good hour yesterday reconfiguring my stand-up desk. I brought the monitor way up high.
Oh,
because my posture was suffering.
Yeah. So more than now, it's like a surveillance monitor. It's like I'm in the corner.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's definitely head height now. Maybe. Well, yeah, it's up there. It's a little daunting. It looks kind of you look at the desk now, and I actually moved the location. I kind of put it up against a window and instead of in the middle of the room, and gives me some room to roam, I guess. But yeah, I just kind of had the monitor sort of at the same height as the keyboard and the mouse. So I was standing, but I was just doing kind of these funky little hunches and hip shifts that were painful.
Yeah.
And so I moved things around and tried to clean up all my wiring and that sort of thing. Just sort of try to re-inspire. But I do, and I think it's for better or worse with this stand-up desk. Well, I think it's for good and for bad that I don't spend a lot of time at the desk on my computer. So I think that's good because there are other things that I need to do, and it's good not to get, I think, caught, doing unproductive things. Which if you're sort of sitting at a chair in front of your computer, you can do at times.
I think it's amusing that you say that the stand-up desk actually keeps you from doing unproductive things. I have not been so lucky. Maybe it's that I've gotten exceptionally good at my stand-up desk and that now I'm able to be as unproductive while standing up as I once was sitting down.
It's the goal, isn't it?
Well, if there is a brass ring, that's the one I'm shooting for.
There are worse things. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of phone calls to make and other creative projects to pursue. So, yeah, for now, and so for good and for bad, I would also say there's some projects that I'm doing in other places where I can sit because I look at that desk and think, gosh, that's going to be a couple hours. Do I want to stand up for? I don't know if I do. Anyway, but it's good to shake things up. It's good to sort of keep yourself hopping a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I also, by the way, found a really phenomenal coffee shop here in Boise that looks like a great place to pursue a project, something where you've got to, let's say a website project, you've got to sit down and really hammer out. What a cool, it's an old church that has all kinds of couches and tables and places to kind of hide in a corner for an entire day. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I may head there after this podcast.
Oh,
it's always
awesome.
You find those, right?
Yeah. Especially here, and I know there are people who don't like the Starbucks.
Yeah.
But they have
not one of them.
No, I'm definitely not one. I'm a frequent flyer, and one of the things that they're doing here is they're doing the revamp. They're remodeling all the Starbucks, and we've got part of the new
wine plus coffee kind of thing, or
I don't know about wine.
Oh,
wine?
Well, they were testing that. Yes.
Yeah, not here.
Okay.
At least I haven't seen any wine at Starbucks here in Portland, but they've just been rejiggering them all, reconfiguring them. They've got different tables and chairs, a little bit more comfortable, I think, and the orientations. But they've got these. They've now, at least in the main, my main drag Starbucks, they've got giant tables in the middle, kind of the big central table that seat like 15.
Communal table.
Yeah, the communal table right in the middle with good lighting, and I really like that. I like it. Feels like working on kind of a team, even though I don't know anybody.
I kind of noticed that early on when Starbucks was competing against your neighborhood corner coffee shops that were, attracting people that would sit and sit on their laptop for hours, they seemed to have a pretty competitive array of furniture that, in my mind, kind of seem to have been phased out a bit, replaced by more products and also smaller stores
Mm-hmm.
that didn't quite encourage that, stick around forever vibe. So I think that's interesting. I know that there are certainly, well, Portland's full of great coffee shops, but I love that one in, it's not quite the Pearl District, but that place you and I have met before that has the plugs at the tables.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's Brecken Kitchen. Brecken.
Place is so cool.
It's very cool. And yeah, that's a frequent stop. It's in yeah, it's not quite the Pearl. Off of Thurman. It's
Yeah, I wouldn't know what
north
street
end.
it is.
Yeah, it's
north,
a great
north
that's
of
a
the
great
REI.
place. Yeah, north of the REI. Yeah, that's a good one. The other one, there's another one I like. It's Java Vivace, or I think it's just Vivace now. Now it's kind of a restaurant. They serve crepes now, but it's a house on Northwest 23rd that's really cool and it's one of the things I like about it is that it's like they've taken this whole house, right? And so downstairs you get your thing, you in the like living room by the fireplace is where you order your food, and you take your coffee and you go sit in like the kids' bedroom upstairs, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? It's like every room of this old house is converted into restaurant space, and
that's so interesting.
It's really cool. It's a cool vibe.
So what's your strategy? What's your productivity strategy for coffee shops? I mean, when do you figure, you know what, I need a coffee shop for this, or is it a bad thing? Is it you go to a coffee shop thinking you're going to be productive, and you end up just reading news?
Well, that's always the risk, the black hole of internet. And so when I know I'm going to be most productive, it's usually grading papers. Honestly, that side of the my business where I teach, is one where I end up with these long bouts where I know I'm just going to have to muscle through staring at the screen and typing comments. And so I take my headphones. I've got great headphones.
What kind?
Etymotics. These are the H2Fs. They are in ear with the spongy memory foam kind of thing. So you stick them in and they fill your ear, so you can keep the volume really low, which is important. You don't want to blow out your brain. And so you keep the volume low, but they're noise isolating but they don't have any of the active kind of Bose noise canceling thing going on. So you don't have that white noise fuzz, which I hate. I hate that. So you just hear your music, and I put on right now my music of choice is the Social Network soundtrack. Fantastic, Trent Reznor. And I put that on, and I can go for a couple of repeats of that entire album. And
so speaking of the Social Network, Mark Zuckerberg had quite a week last week.
That was how I was gonna was what I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I thought that was quite romantic of him to, right after becoming a $20 billion man, turn a graduation celebration for his girlfriend into a private personal wedding with, I guess 100 people isn't super private, but still. Yeah,
like in his backyard.
Yeah. So, he's an interesting guy. He's an interesting guy. It will be interesting to watch his career. And I have read about several Facebook young, either billionaires or multimillionaires who are doing very productive things that are pretty impressive so far.
What does that mean, productive things?
How do
you qualify
but
that?
I don't know names, but there was one of the original founders, and I'm not sure who he is, but there was a story a couple of weeks ago about I thought this was really very interesting. He and another early Facebook employee who's worth far less, but worth far more than me. They're down in Soho in San Francisco, creating some software for project management, I guess. And they're both, I guess, in their late 20s, and certainly the one guy just really doesn't have to work for the rest of his life. And neither do to quite a few of them at this point, after the IPO. But the comment I really liked from this guy, and maybe it sounds a little heady, but or conceited, but I didn't read it that way. He said he felt like working was kind of his obligation, and that that is how he can contribute positively to the world. And if he isn't working or creating things or showing up at work, then he's not doing his part. He's not making the world a better place, and he can make the world a better place. And so we're talking about project management software that he's going to make money off of. But his read on it was, if I don't do this, then I'm wasting, space here on the planet. It was, I thought it was interesting, actually. And I think there are a number of those guys who seem to be very, certainly they're intelligent and well-educated uh, I guess you could say got very lucky, a lot of them, but also work hard and are industrious. And I don't see too many of them, I don't hear about them, for instance, on heroin binges in Hollywood, or, wasting all their money gambling in Vegas, or I hear about interesting things like pursuing projects, or, still working many long hours. And I think it's just kind of interesting because that's still a pretty young crowd,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. Besides, it's not, heroin was kind of the 90s drug.
Yeah.
Now it's crystal meth. Sorry, that's terrible.
They do.
The thing that's interesting. So this all is all sort of spins off of the IPO, which was Friday. Facebook opened at $38 a share, and today it is it's been on a nice steady decline for the last couple of days. It is now it's now at $32.60. Made a lot of people a lot of money, but it wasn't a sort of a bang up launch. And so I don't know. What do you think? What do you think that is? Is there a message you can get from the fact that the stock didn't shoot from 38 to 100?
No, because, and I certainly think they did their best to try to price it appropriately. I don't think they were trying to overshoot or be gimmicky. But I think IPOs for companies like that, I mean, really, like a young company, technically a pretty young company that has such a massive valuation, it's hard, I think, to to really, I think it's risky. I mean, IPOs are risky in a lot of ways, but so I think this is certainly not unprecedented, and I don't think it's shocking. And I think it will also be interesting for people to have access to information about Facebook that they haven't before, now that they're public,
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? And how do people, I think a lot of people are, certainly a lot of traditional analysts or traditional traders or whatever are not sure what to make. And we've been through, it's been a while, but the internet bubble was really a time of saying, companies that have no revenue, what's their future worth? I mean, there were so many weird IPOs that happened that for companies that were all about what could be possible, and that ran its course. And Facebook is their IPO is at a time where it's not just a calculation of where will they go, but how are they doing? And it's easier now to say, how about this year or next quarter? Or, we talked about sort of the profit or the revenue per Facebook,
per click and per user.
Yeah. And what are they going to do to, how fast can they catch up with the likes of Google in terms of really putting the right ads in front of the right people to make commercial activity occur? So anyway, yeah, it's steady decline, but I don't, it's not like this is some washed up company that, I think it'll be up and down for a while, I guess. I don't know what you can learn from it.
Well, I said it the way I said that. You would think that I was gearing up for a loaded question, and I really wasn't. Because I think we agree that one of the things you can learn from this particular IPO, if anything, was just how well they set that price.
Mm-hmm.
The initial price. I mean, if anything, the media scrutiny and the sort of broad kind of analysis of Facebook and Facebook's sort of leaders, not just Zuckerberg, but the leadership team, I think over the last 6 months, year, served really well to set that price at a really sane level. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the 20, I don't know, when LinkedIn has been open for has been public for just under a year, I think. And in the first month, I think it opened around 88, something like that. I mean, it dropped 20 plus points in the first month before starting to regain traction. I think it's at its very low. Over the first 3 months, it had a nice little rally, but then dropped again to its low at like 60 from its opening at just under 90. And now it's up over 100 again. It's had a really nice steady sort of incline over the last, last 6 months. And I think that says that maybe people were just kind of getting ready for IPOs again and didn't quite know how to handle a company like LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, if anything, shares some of the DNA of Facebook as a social networking organization. And I think they kind of get it at Facebook now. And I think investors are sort of understanding, but skeptical, but not skeptical, critical.
Right.
Of what this company is and their profitability, but I think they're learning, and I think that's what it indicates more than anything else.
Well, and you shift from wow, how many users again? Oh my gosh, one in how many Americans? This is crazy. To okay, how much profit? And that's a new way to, like you said, be critical and really analyze the company. But yes, I totally agree that the approach to this IPO was not let's I don't know, let's set a crazy price and see if we can break some records, or let's set a low price because it's kind of gimmicky and we think it'll shoot up and that'll be great news. And I think it really was very sanely set. I think there was a lot of analysis that went into that price and the amount of shares that they released and the whole thing. So I think it was a very sober approach, and they're down a bit, and it's sort of, like you said, a steady decline, but it's not like it was cut in half overnight or some weird something's terribly wrong. It really, I think, is just a little bit of the up and down that's going to go on for a little while. And I think it will be interesting for people to have new information to be critical about them with. But I think, as far as I can tell, they're ready for that.
Yeah, I think the early dip is not going to matter in the long run.
I don't think so.
There are a lot of things going on at Facebook that might matter more. Let's say it that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's right. It's honestly, even though we've had all kinds of, Netscapes and pet.com and, all kinds of crazy things over the last, couple of decades with technology companies, you look at 20 billion with Zuckerberg, and I think more than anything about Bill Gates and Microsoft, and even though this is a radically different product in a different time, I do wonder. It seems like the collection of people is a very brilliant group of folks, and I think a very sober group, more so than we probably even thought a couple of years ago, or maybe it was even true a couple of years ago. So it'll be interesting, because now they've really got sort of everything going for them, and it's a matter of what kinds of smart decisions are made, either to be very true to exactly what they currently do well and continue to tweak it to do better, or very interesting strategic, maybe risky moves like the Instagram purchase, where we're wondering how well these guys can read the tea leaves.
Yeah. Well,
it'll just be interesting to watch.
Yeah. It will be interesting. So I don't have anything new to say about Facebook's performance other than just to celebrate that it's launched as an IPO, and now we actually get to have a different kind of conversation about the company, which is
and have you noticed? It seems to me, and I don't. You're probably all over this, but in the last, I suppose, week, when I'm looking at Facebook on either my iPhone in particular, but iPad, whatever, I'm seeing some really enormous pictures with
Yeah.
the news updates. They are getting bigger and bigger by the day, it seems to me.
Yeah, the pictures are getting they're serving bigger pictures, and it started with Instagram, and it is with the Instagram acquisition, but particularly on mobile. Everything that I'm hearing is that that Facebook as a company is recognizing the enormous importance of photo sharing as the linchpin of social networking right now, and that's where the most activity and the most engagement is happening, is around sharing photos.
Yeah, and that's the link that I was making. And last night I was just like, holy cow! Wow, these are big, beautiful pictures that are showing up in my newsfeed, and I'm thinking to myself, one of the differences between that and say your Facebook experience a year ago is a year ago, if you're checking your newsfeed and you see a little thumbnail that looks like it might be interesting, you kind of got to click on that, to see a bigger size version, and you end up on that friend's page or whatever. I don't feel the same. I mean, I can interact with a picture without leaving my news feed, and maybe that also is a part of the strategy, because I was thinking about what I'd read about Google's new algorithm and how they're trying to push towards serving results that in many cases would have you not necessarily needing to even click on a link. So you search for, say, Albert Einstein in your Google search, and you're served a lot of different websites and Wikipedia and places you can go to learn more. Or on the right-hand side, there'll be large images and a brief synopsis, date of birth, date of death, maybe a summary of his life, greatest achievements, awards. That they're pushing towards serving more of those kinds of results. That I'm not sure exactly how that feeds into their business model, but they certainly, it does feed into, I think, making them the most, used or desirable search engine.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, I don't have any answers for like why is that a great thing for them to do. I haven't noticed it in my own search results yet, but I've read that this is where they're heading.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm a little bit sidetracked right now because I'm bringing up search results because I think this is interesting, and this is kind of hot right now. Is Bing, the new Bing, versus Google? Right? Are you up on the new Bing? Have you tried the Bing preview?
No, I have not.
Have you ever tried Bing?
I have. Yeah, I have.
What's your overall impression of the Bing?
It's pretty. It's pretty.
Okay,
that's my impression. I don't know that I, when it comes to serving search results, I don't have an opinion, but I think that it's an attractive, and I've found, here's where I've used Bing is when I've been on websites that the ad for the website, this isn't the only time I've used Bing, but lately I've used it a few times, where the ad on the page, whatever page I'm on, is it's a large-sized ad with the Bing, search window or whatever, but the background is sort of a moving ad for somebody like, say, Wiz Khalifa. So you click on it, and then you get this, I don't know, minute and a half clip, on the latest album or the latest track from Wiz Khalifa, and it's very well done, and it's pretty, but it pulls you into the Bing search experience. I think that's good advertising, and it's obviously pulled me in.
What are you doing over there? It's like, are you licking the microphone while you're doing that?
No, I'm not.
I've got some. Should I? Mic licking sounds.
Are we doing that now? Is that the thing kids are doing these days?
It's a different segment.
I'm probably just clacking because my head's against a pillow.
Okay. All right. Well,
and it's this.
Your head's. Are you doing this? Are you laying down while you're doing this? Like we're
I
talking,
wouldn't
are you
call it laying
reclining?
down. I'd say, I'm in a sort of a modest,
Oh,
state of recline.
okay. Well, continue, but
Not anymore though.
try not to do as much wiggling.
I'm up and at 'em now.
Okay, that's good. All right, so
So
back
were
to
you
your
so
impression of
distracted
Bing.
because I was done. I made my point.
No, I was totally distracted. I was not even listening to your point at the time.
Ouch.
No, I was. It was good. It pulls you into the Bing search experience, and you like
Right.
that.
Your advertising did that, and it gives me so I feel like I have a little sense of, wow, this is pretty elegant. It's got a nice aesthetic to it, and that's my opinion.
It looks exactly like Google, right? I mean, I'm looking at a search result for Pete Wright side by side, Google and Bing, and aesthetically, the individual search result is exactly the same. I don't know why people aren't like really noticing this, because it seems like it, but you have the blue linked subject or title, page title. You have a green URL in smaller print right below it, and then you have 2 lines of text that ends in an ellipsis. If it is too long of a page description, and that is the individual search result element on the page. They are identical, right? The quality of the search, the first thing that comes up on a Google search is this Pete Wright, this attorney, and apparently does a lot of speaking, but man, he bests me every time.
That
He's
jerk.
got like three of his pages come up ahead of me, and then my Facebook page. Now, here's what's interesting. So obviously, on Google, if I search for myself, my Facebook page comes up ahead of my Google Plus page or Twitter page, which I find interesting because, with all the Google Plus stuff, you'd think Google would serve my Google Plus page right up top. But maybe it's because I'm logged in and they know who I am, so they're discounting that. That's probably what's happening. It's probably smarter than I am. But on Bing, this is really what is added to the new Bing preview, is a sidebar that pops out of the right. And that sidebar gives me connected accounts and is directly connected to Facebook. So the first result is Bing's linked pages in the main search results area. But if I have questions about the results that I'm getting, I can pop out this little sidebar, and I can ask my friends immediately on Facebook from this sidebar, what do you think about the search results that I'm getting for some reason? You can hover over each individual result or click this little button thing, and I can post my results directly to Facebook or other connected accounts, presumably. So, this is where the two paths part, right? On Google, they went ahead and built a social network to support social searching, and that is Google Plus, right? And Bing has said, you know what? Microsoft says we don't really have a social network. Our live services, maybe you could kind of as a stretch say that we have some sort of a social network, Xbox Live. If you're a gamer, if you've signed up for Xbox Live for any reason, if you subscribe to Live to get Netflix and Hulu on your, on your
Xbox Go.
Yeah, maybe that's
or
a stretch.
HBO Go,
but it's not it is not a substantive social networking experience. So we're going to go ahead and pull in the results from Facebook, which as an investor we have access to, a little bit more kind of intimate relationship with the data at Facebook that other parties don't have. I'm saying that presuming that is what they're buying by their, sizable investment in the company. And so this strategy of social search is bringing my friends again into search results by their activity on Facebook. I don't know how I feel about this. On its surface, I find, and using it on Google because I don't really use Bing, but using social search on Google, when I run a search on Google and I see the search result that actually has a picture of one of my friends underneath it that says they have, recommended this or shared this page or +1 to this page, I am more likely to click on that result. if there's an ad that comes through and it has somebody else, one of the people in my network, I'm more likely to click on this result. I wonder if the Bing approach doesn't, if the actual implementation of it is a little bit more cluttered. I'm having trouble kind of parsing because I'm not seeing a search with significant Facebook activity around it, so I don't know quite how it works yet. But
well, and I don't know quite who uses Bing yet either. Like people do, and I suppose you have to get down to, there has to be something. They can't all just be, a different flavor of the exact same thing. That didn't even make sense. But there has to be something that is more appealing at some point. And I think it's so difficult, when the core is serving relevant results. Now we're watching evolutions like this that is very interesting, and I wasn't aware of. This is not something I was paying attention to. But how are they socializing the results? I guess, and what weight does that carry, and how does it, how does it make one more likely to be used than the other? I would say, just kind of, back to, do I use Bing, or what are my interactions? I have found in a couple of cases with some people I've worked with that they seem to be more accommodating when it comes to building your local places results. And it's not called place. Google, it's places. Bing, it's what? Bing Map or Bing Local. I can't even remember. But they seem to be more responsive, more willing to pick up the phone, more willing to walk you through things, more willing to react when, say, the address is wrong, or you're trying to work your local result ranking a little higher. So people I've worked with they've enjoyed. We've had good success getting them listed for local results and getting responsiveness to get them corrected more quickly. Google, the process can really be, they seem to really just be backed up essentially. It's very difficult to get them to work with you. With Google, there's more of a, well, just give it a few months and it'll work itself out. Seems to be what happens there, which is frustrating for small businesses, especially when you get into a busy season or something like that for whatever industry it is, and you really need things to be corrected. So anyway, that's important, and that's been important for small businesses. Of course, that's on the small business side, and for all the work that it takes to get those results corrected, you're still at, if you feel like, wow, we're number 2 in Bing's map results, but we're number 6 in Google's. Well, that's exciting, except that I think Bing is 20% maybe of the search engine
I don't know.
Market.
Let's see. Do you hear the chaos going on in my office here? Can you hear any crashing and banging?
I heard like sounded like movement on your desk. I didn't hear crashing.
No, we have a new kitten. And it's destroying something in my bookshelf right now.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. I think it's really, one of the let's see, Bing is at 5%. Looks like.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of that's on net market share.
How about Chrome recently becoming the number 1 web browser? I saw that on Mashable the other day.
What do you think about that?
I use Chrome for a couple of specific things. I use, I don't know what I think about it. My default is Safari, but I have certain accounts that I'm sort of pre-logged into on Firefox, and the same with Chrome, and that way I can do different things without having to log out as a user, for instance, from Google in Safari to use, say, AdWords in Chrome. I can have them both going as different accounts. So I like Chrome fine, but I still default to Safari. So I don't know what I think about it. I'm a long way from having used Internet Explorer for anything. So I think in terms of if I were forced onto a Windows machine for some reason, I think Chrome reacts much more quickly than Firefox. I'm not in love with Firefox.
Oh, I don't. And according to the statistics, people are joining you. This is interesting to me. So in September 2008, Chrome W3Schools.com began tracking Chrome's usage. It launched at 3.1%. Safari at the time was 2.7% and had launched. Let's see. They started tracking Safari January of 2007. So Chrome launched higher than in their tracking than Safari did, and had been around a while and was at that point 2.7%. But Internet Explorer at the time had just dropped below 50% in September of 2008. That's when it first hit 49%. And now Internet Explorer is at 18.3% as of April. Firefox is 35.8%. Chrome is 38.3%, Safari at 4.5%, and Opera is 2.3%. I don't know what I think about that, and I wonder, in light of what we were just talking about in terms of data sharing and social search, the big benefit of Chrome. Well, there are a couple of big benefits of Chrome. It's in my experience, it's fast, and I think that's shared. I know some people have been having trouble with it on the Mac of late, but largely, if you're running the latest version of Chrome, it's super fast. It works really, really, really well with Google's services, right? And that means some of the highest traffic websites, on the internet, Google, Yahoo, Google, Yahoo, Finance. I mean, the general search results, and of course, the sort of now the glue that they're driving everybody toward, which is, and Maps and Google Plus.
Well, I'll tell you one of my thoughts about it. I remember a time when I worked for a company that, we had a web advertising division, and we were creating web ads for clients. And I remember our chief technology guy who was in charge of sort of the web ad division. I remember him in a meeting saying, look, sure, there are a couple other browsers, but they don't matter. And we literally can just plan to build ads to function on Internet Explorer and call it good, because it's the vast majority of people using it, and it really doesn't even matter. It isn't worth our time as a company to modify our ads to be optimized for other web browsers, because Internet Explorer is so dominant that really is the only thing we have to worry about. And you look at what you're talking about, the shift in market share, and ultimately it's a good thing. Ultimately, and I don't think there are the same compatibility issues that there were 5 years ago, even though they do still exist. I don't think it's a nice thing that things seem to play together, somewhat nicely these days. But still, I think when you go from the feeling of inevitable dominance to good, quality choices, I like that.
Yeah, I think it's really, really nice that there isn't one single, browser that is absolutely, owning the web, because it drives all the other browsers to support, a more common set of standards.
Exactly, and that's a great thing. And then that allows who knows what in the future, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And while we're on the Microsoft topic, I wanted to just ask you, because this is very belated news, but I didn't know if you had an opinion on the collaboration, I guess it's called. There's probably a better term, between Microsoft and Barnes & Noble on the Nook for textbooks, I guess, right?
Wow, do I know about this?
Okay, well, it was a couple weeks ago. It's I think a $300 million investment, and it looks like possibly the beginning of Barnes & Noble's ability to spin Nook off into either a separate company or maybe a co-owned company or something to that effect. It increased shares slightly for Barnes & Noble, because there was a lot of concern that the Nook was a little in over its head in the long run, competition-wise. And this was Microsoft's effort, as far as I can tell, to jump into to compete with Apple's, moves in college textbooks and that kind of thing on the iPad. So
I wonder.
I haven't read
who
much about it.
I wonder who they're really competing with. right? I mean, this is I don't know if this is a
Well, I
competition
don't
with
know
Apple.
that
I
it
think
was
it's
a
a competition with
competition. I
Amazon.
think you're right. I don't know that it was meant to be. It was something to do with with textbooks more than it was to do with straight ebooks. But you know, yeah, was it meant to compete against Apple? I never read that it was. I just sort of made
Yeah.
that assumption, and I haven't read much about it. I didn't know if you had an opinion, and you don't.
Well, I can make
So
one
that's
up.
okay. So let's talk about this. How
Okay.
about Kraft Foods' newly announced company name, Mondeleza or Mondelez?
Well, first of all, what's fantastic about it is how could you possibly spell it? There's an accent over there. What are they? What? Mondelez? Is it? How do you say that? Mondelez? Weird.
Which I hate. I hate the. Now, how do you spell that?
Mondele.
No, I know. I'm just saying the fact
Oh,
that
you were not asking. Yeah. See, that's the point.
Is. I think it's always a bad thing. I mean, the article I read about this, it was just today that I read it, was comparing, like, okay, they spent, a good 4 months of very in-depth research, went through thousands of names, and they fully expected the backlash and the wisecracks because they kind of had already focus grouped them. And then they compared it to, and the company executives compared it to when you got like 9 months or less to prepare for the coming of a child, and so you're going through all these names and you're testing them and you're blah blah blah. Well, I think in any case you have all that time, you do kind of want to stop and say, do you want the annoyance of, now how is that spelled every single time? Now what did you say? Now how do you pronounce that?
So one of the things I love, I don't know if you read, Diane Brady wrote a great piece in Bloomberg or Business Week on the art of rebranding, and art was in quotes. It looks like the way this worked is that the company, so the Mondelez is going to be the name of the new snacks business, right? Because the company is splitting. Right, that's the whole issue. And so what they ended up doing was they took essentially a giant survey of 1,700 names submitted by more than 1,000 Kraft employees over a 5-month process of soliciting ideas, and they came up with. Well, I'm just going to read the passage again from Diane Brady on Bloomberg Business Week, The Art of Rebranding. For Kraft spokesman Michael Mitchell, Tfark, that's spelled Tfark, is a personal favorite. Quote, "I'm not sure what it means," says Mitchell. "I just like the way it sounds." Let's say it again. Tfark. Where do you work, Dane? Tfark. Oh man, I have to redo my resume. I have to redo my resume because I'm really trying to get that great job at Tfark.
This also speaks to, I'm all for crowdsourcing, but I think there's a science to making it actually work and be productive and not be biased. But I think the over democratization of things like this, where you give the outside appearance that, boy, we opened this up to everybody and the cream rose to the top, no question about it. Well, no, it didn't. At some point, somebody with a lot of authority got an opinion and everyone else sort of fell in line.
Well, and that was the Mondelez came from Johannes Schmidt, a 35-year company veteran working in information systems in Vienna, and Mark Firestone, Kraft's general counsel, and someone Mitchell describes as a real Renaissance man, based at the company's headquarters in Northfield, Illinois. Both came up with the idea of playing on the notion, quote, delicious world, end quote. This is, after all, the part of the company that deals in chocolate, cookies, crackers, gum, and candy. Putting boxed macaroni or cheese spread under such a label might not be as obvious a fit. The higher purpose is to make today delicious, says Mitchell, with no trace of irony in his voice.
I got to say, I remember starting at a company once as the marketing head, and this company had been contemplating a new division, and they had already spent like, I don't know, a day or a half a day trying to come up with names. Like that was where they were stuck. They had a vague notion of what is this business going to be? It's going to be a spin-off of what we do, but it's going to be different. It'll be this other, whatever. But the name, what are we going to call it, was really where they were hung up, and it never did end up getting launched. But and so I was handed like, hey, here are some names, but by the company president, I was obviously pointed to, this one is the one we're really looking at. And what it was a Latin word for something. And so it meant nothing to me or to most people, but they had been caught on the meaning. And in this case, this Mondelez is a hybrid. I think it maybe even is a Latin hybrid, but it's not a real word per se, but it's like delicious world. So all of a sudden you can see they've got this background that they have that they find attractive. So this word has meaning to those, who I guess have helped sort of craft this and oh, delicious world, isn't that cool? Well, it doesn't say call it delicious world,
right?
Called it Mondelez. It doesn't mean anything to anybody, but now there's this attachment, and I've sort of witnessed that before.
Well, it's absolutely, I think this happens a lot more often than maybe than it should, certainly, because you're making it, the bottom line is, to me, you're making it too hard, because now not only do you have to tell the world we've changed our name, but now we have to teach you what it means.
Right.
There was a great interview on The Verge. Have you seen that show yet, On The Verge?
Nope.
The Verge, obviously is the website, theverge.com. And
I've seen The View. Is it like The View?
It's not, it's actually not dissimilar to The View.
Okay.
In form and format. It's a late night TV show, right? I mean, it's a late night show only on the internet, that is produced by a bunch of gadget heads with really, really high production value. Like it's a beautiful show, and it's really wonderful. You should check it out and subscribe to it, because they do a great job with it. But it's for geeks, right? And last month, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, was on the show, and he said something that I think really is apropos of this discussion. He says, astrophysicists, the universe is an enormously complex place, and so we have gone out of our way to make the terms that define that place as simple as possible. There are spots on the sun. There's sunspots. There's a giant black hole in space. It's a black hole. He said everything we do works to reduce the number of syllables in a word that describes what we do to one. And I loved that, because he's talking about simplifying a really complex concept in order to make it easier on yourself as the communicator to teach the world about this concept. And Mondelez does exactly not that.
Right. And you know who is not at all my favorite person, but who I respect and admire for his ability to work with words and give them power and to change public perception by things like simplification and finding that common denominator, is Frank Lutz, the Republican strategist. I don't know if he's a strategist, but he's pretty brilliant with words. I don't don't love the man, but I think he's really. It's not the exact same thing. I mean, you're talking about descriptions, I guess. He does things where it's, like calling something the Clean Air Act that is, a reduction in in clean air.
Right.
He was very good at that. It still is, I think. So, it's there obviously is a science. And I guess that's why I thought of Frank Luntz is, you're bringing up, well, okay, we could take submissions from our global company and see who has the most attachment to an obscure term. Or, I think this is, in my opinion, an underdeveloped or underutilized science, is, the way the simplification or the sort of the common association to a term can really move something forward.
What this piece is illustrative of is that this company was way too close to becoming Tfark. Like the fact that that's even brought up in conversation means they were too close to that line.
Somebody's like, "Oh, we have an option? Okay, yeah. Whatever it is."
Mondelez is absolutely the win if that's the choice. I'm sorry for the new craft company that was the choice, but if that's the choice, they made the right one.
Hey, can I bring up one other thing I think is interesting, and I just want to get your opinion on it. Sure. I know are we there? I don't know what.
Yeah, I think we're there.
Well, okay, one thing, right? So I've got this mother-in-law who is my mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. And anyway, she went on a little trip to California and got home the other day and just immediately was like, I can't believe what an awful flight that was. Because she usually flies Southwest and feels like everything goes smoothly. But on United, we couldn't get the seats we wanted. We couldn't sit together, and they couldn't help us, and she was just fired up about this, right? And first of all, I thought of the Louis C.K. Bit on airplanes and how. Isn't it just a miracle that you're sitting in a chair at 30,000 feet?
You non-contributing zero. I love that bit.
It's a really good one. Quit complaining. Anyway, but the other thing was an article today about how at peak travel this summer, you should fully expect to not be able to sit with the people you are flying with unless you pay for that privilege. And that stems from charging extra, obviously, for exit rows. That's been going on for a while, but now for a window or an aisle, you're going to pay extra. So if you want to sit next to your spouse and there are 3 seats in a row, one of you is paying extra to be in either the window or the aisle. And even if you're flying with a child or you want to get your whole family together, unless you're willing to foot the bill for that, you're all going to be separated.
Oh my goodness. Which means they are now going out of their way to make parties traveling together sit apart.
Well, I was just thinking like, okay, the stewardess who actually says,
flight attendant, Dane.
Whatever. Like images. I watch Mad Men, and I kind of get drawn into the romance of sexism in the 60s. Anyway, sorry, flight attendant. Anyway, I guess I say stewardess because they're, in my mind, what the example I'm going to give you, they would be the most sympathetic. But if I'm flying with my twins and somebody really has the audacity to say, you guys didn't pay to be together, so you're thoroughly rambunctious 5-year-old boy and your super shy 5-year-old girl will be there, and you'll be here because y'all didn't pay to sit together. Right. I just don't see it happening.
You don't think they would go that place, to that dark place?
It would be a very interesting flight if that happened for everybody.
For everybody. That's really the issue, that they're making an economic argument that's going to make it worse for everyone.
Make those people take care of my kids. I'm going to have a more pleasant flight. I'm okay.
Yeah, I guess that's right. It will be more pleasant for only one person.
Like, hey,
and that's Dad.
Just how everyone does with that. Okay, I just, again, I don't know if I don't know how far they'll take it, but I thought it was interesting because it went from, I hear this complaint to, this one flight and this one airline, and I can't believe this, to, you should be expecting that.
Yeah. Well, there are a whole lot of reasons to complain about air travel for sure. But this one, this I think is the most interesting one. And it's more, I don't necessarily have, a specific opinion on, is this the right way to monetize air travel? But as a laboratory experiment, I wish this was a laboratory experiment and not subjected on, millions of air travelers every day, every year. But as a laboratory, it's most interesting because this is the industry that is trying to monetize everything. They have to find a way to monetize everything. And it's really interesting to see the lengths to which they will go to do that.
And it would be one thing if we were seeing this at a time when they were barely making ends meet. But this, charging for luggage and charging for your meals and that kind of thing has been pretty successful to the bottom line so far. And they Delta, I think, had one of their most profitable quarters ever recently. And so at some point, I guess I want to see them pull back a bit and not just increase their profits at my inconvenience. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the real trick. And I've been having this discussion a lot recently because there are companies, in spite of the sort of the economy in the state that it is, that are turning around and are seeing the profits go up. And I worry, I think, that we're so used to times of austerity that we forget that there are people who took some significant pay cuts to get us back to this place in this market. And as organizational leaders, there's a time to pay it back to the customers that have been loyal and to the employees that have been loyal. And
Well, yes, and you would think, there are market corrections and outside forces, but there are also things that many companies in the car industry, chief among them, had to learn about understanding their customers and understanding the market and being intelligent about how they run their business. And so, when things are then profitable, I know everybody still, I would imagine anyway, is saying, okay, so we've been profitable and this is great, but we still are very uncertain, and so we're not quite ready to maybe be anything but austere. But I guess the market maybe plays itself out in that regard. And you think, how hard would it be for the airline to really rise to the top that says, and of course, Southwest has kind of already done this.
Well, I think
we're
Virgin,
not charging for bags.
I think Virgin is another airline that's made a history of giving more. Even if they monetize in this whole new fancy way, the experience when you fly a Virgin America flight is notably different than.
Well, and it seems like this is old news, but when a company treats its employees well, that's part of branding.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just a good, sort of a social obligation or whatever to take care of people that work for you or you are in some sense your partners in business, but it brands you because it's clear to me when I go to a business if the employees are being taken care of or they're happy to be there or they feel like they're just slaves.
Yeah. Well, and I was joking about Tfark, but getting my resume ready. But that's really it. I mean, how excited are you going to be to go, put your blood, sweat, and tears for, toward an organization that you can't pronounce? Hey, I wanted to tell you, speaking of the car industry, we got a car.
Dude, did you get the Hyundai?
We got the Hyundai. We got a Hyundai Sonata. And this is after, I went out and I drove a bunch of cars. And the bottom line was the experience and the value for features was head and shoulders above. Just the total sort of unified driving experience of this car was head and shoulders above everything else we tried.
That's a luxury looking automobile too, isn't it?
It is at a very reasonable price for the class of car that it ends up being. I absolutely love it, and it is a I told my wife I'm finished now shopping. I know exactly where I'm going to go when the other car goes. We're 10-year car people at least. Like we want to make sure that that's the low end benchmark, and this is a car that just feels very much like it's going to be around with us. And so I know we talked about that, like the experience of sort of auto marketing and how just sort of disgusting a process that is. Like I don't love.
It's a dirty process. I
really don't love that process. And I think the experience, the driving experience, the test driving experience, the showroom experience, looking in this class of a car was head and shoulders above the rest. They made that, a great product really shine for us. And I think it surprised me because talk about a brand that has turned it around in the last, 8 years. This is not the car that I remember from 10 years ago. It's just not the same car.
And it's more of a wide open market, partly because of the Honda and Toyota recently where they used to just always dominate. But I think it's a wide open market for car companies who can be, again, intelligent about their products. Which products are they putting money into, and do they have too many? Do they have the right kind for the market? And but obviously quality and features, and it's sort of anybody's game, I think. You know what I mean?
It really is, and you can see this interesting strategy kind of at work, particularly in the Hyundai, because I was talking to another buying consultant, kind of an independent third party, and I said, it feels to me like something is wrong with the Hyundai, because it drives like an incredibly solid car. It drives really tight to the road. Everything feels really tight inside the cabin. It feels like everything's bolted together tight. Nothing feels like plastic. It's very solid. And you get all these features, like you get the full navigation and GPS, and you get the satellite, and you get the backup camera, and you get all these features that in the same class of car you do not get anywhere else. In the same class for the same price. And I said, how do they do that? Because it says either they're selling these cars at an enormous loss, or they're cheap. The functions and features in here are just really, really cheap. And he said, no, that's not actually the case. The strategy of Hyundai is to get an enormous number of cars on the roads. They are a company that is quite literally making it up in volume. And so it really is. I mean, they end up selling, maybe, if they weren't making so many of these cars, they would be selling them at a loss. But at least what he's telling me is they're making so many because they want to get so many on the road. And now it's like all I can see. It seems like I'm driving around in a fleet of Hyundai. So that is a potential downside. There are a lot of Hyundais out there right now.
See, and I haven't noticed. And it is a funny thing when you get a new car.
Yeah, it's all you see.
It's all you see. Yeah. And it's really true. And there probably are a lot more than I've ever noticed. But it sounds like for good reason. So congratulations,
well,
new car owner.
It's certainly a fun car.
That's a fun thing. It makes you want to just go on a road trip. Which, by the way, my last point, I'm going to be on a road trip to Bend, Oregon this weekend.
Oh, great. That's not close to me so much.
Oh, come on. It's 2 hours. And don't forget this. The Shins are playing Friday, Tenacious D on Saturday, and Beck is on Sunday.
Oh, man.
And
what is it? We're going
to be in a condo with plenty of space.
What's the event?
It's Memorial Weekend. I don't know.
You're just doing a thing.
Kids are out of school, so we're going to Bend. Why not?
Well, clearly we might need to talk again
offline
here.
Hey,
a good talk.
Good talk.
All right. Bye.
I'm going to shut my screen now.
Okay.